Welcome to the fourth episode of The Lonely Road. This has, done more than I kind of expected it to. I don't know what your expectations were, KJ. Before we even go into the full complete intro, thank you guys for coming. We've
Thank you.
gotten 4,000 viewers in the past month. I didn't expect that to do that. And not getting promoted anywhere, it's not getting shared anywhere other than like our personal stuff here and there. Thank you, because it seems like this is, completely raw and genuine. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for coming and hanging out. Make sure to subscribe and like the podcast. It is now on Apple Podcasts as well. So we might just see another burst of growth here real soon. We are here to join you on the journey to heal and become a better human. Many of you know me from my job or my other podcast. This is going to be a very different show. We'll be going in on deep dive with grief and mental health, whether it's stats and stories or we're just going to explore it all in depth. After dealing with the trauma that I'm dealing with and everything else, I looked at my girlfriend and I was like, hey, I need to do something. So now we're here. KJ, how are you?
I'm doing okay, buddy. I'm doing okay. It's been a long week. I'm KJ. I'm just here to heal and help others heal with my knowledge and growth that I've done so far. And it's been one heck of a week. How have you been?
Not too bad. It's been a rough one.
Yeah,
I kind of just zoned into playing video games and relaxing. I was so happy we had an extra episode recorded, so that way I could just do that.
good.
I needed time to just decompress and relax and kind of just shut down a little bit. But
I thought that was the case. Good.
yeah, surprisingly, I opened up to my mom. I opened up to Bree, and I was like, I can't, people. I can't do this right now. I need just to put me back together
For
and
sure.
kind of be okay.
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
been a rough week, but
A lot happened to you this week.
yep.
So
As always, half of the money that this show makes and will ever make will be going to charity or a nonprofit organization. And if you want to use G Fuel and use code RMTS at checkout, 25% of that, 20% of that will come off at checkout if you use that. They use buy one, get one free sales right now. So if you guys want some energy drinks and want something sugar free that's not going to make you feel horrible, go check them out. So surprisingly, we have a lighthearted video that we want to help people. We haven't done one of these yet. So it was, we were talking after the last show. It was like, okay, how do we want to organize and do things next and everything else? And I was like, okay, so I'll peek behind the curtain. I have to move marriage problems and everything else down a little bit, just so that way it gets a little bit of space for my divorce. I was like, let's put on these episodes. Let's try these and see exactly how this goes. Because fuck, man, there's a lot of shit that's happened that we're like, okay, we want to talk about this and we're going to talk about this. It's like, okay, no, two positive ones, two negative ones this month, not four fucking negative ones. We need some positivity here.
oh yeah,
Otherwise, everybody's going to leave us.
definitely have to keep things positive and you know as much as it's important to talk about death and most of my growth links in with my grief.
Mm.
It just does. And although it links in, it doesn't always have to be weighed down episodes. I agree, we need to have something light once in a while.
Yeah, and it helps. It kind of takes out the whole shit of, oh, well, no, it's just going to be sad always. No,
Yeah.
no, it's not going to be sad always.
No.
So I thought of this in a way because everybody kind of looks at me and tells me, oh, you've grown so much since your divorce happened. You've grown so much since you separated. You've grown so much in this way or that way. How did you do it? What did you see? What did you change? And I don't really know exactly why everybody kind of looks at me like that. It really genuinely to me is very weird. It makes me feel very uncomfortable because everybody's like, how the fuck did you do this? Were you always like this? Or did you actually genuinely see things that you had to change? And the answer is both. I always was kind of internal and just accepted fault. And I knew I needed to change in order to fix things or do whatever I wanted to do. I don't know. I guess it's just really weird.
Yeah, it's funny how life evolves. Like sometimes I feel like, well, for me anyway, and for you, obviously, a big event has to happen.
Mhm.
Something needs to happen to jolt you out of whatever you're in, and it generally is the catalyst for a transformation.
Mhm. No, and it's super, super interesting. exactly how that works because I think it is so linked to my ADHD. Because I will find the calm. I will find even in chaos. Like even at the beginning of my separation and everything else, my mom and my aunt asked me all the time. They didn't understand exactly how I was able to be so calm and level-headed and okay.
Right.
Even when things were chaos, I was able to pick apart every single systematic thing that was going to happen, when it was going to happen, and whether that's my overthinking and kind of being able to put those pieces together and understand it, or just being able to be calm in chaos, it brought me through a situation that most people struggle with, most people lose everything with, and I changed as a person.
Yeah.
I went from losing everything to actually being okay enough to having almost everybody that I had beforehand, before I was taken away from everybody. Like, I grew everybody back.
Yeah.
I was able to put those pieces back together and fix it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Most people are led in situations of devastation, they're led with their feelings. And I think that you have an advantage where being an overthinker, which I don't really think is overthinking is a bad thing. I think thinking things through to the degree that you do is a positive for you,
Mhm.
because it allows you to be prepared, for things in a logical way. Whereas I am a big feeler and I just had to learn how to change and get a grip on my big ass feelings in order to make that big change in my life. I didn't have that logic. I don't have that think through or that visualization, you know, from
And
beginning to end.
it's really weird. It's weird how my mind kind of overthinks things and puts into perspective everything that could happen within minutes. Whether it's Bree or my mom, and I'm giving them everything and kind of just explaining out what I think could happen, where I see people's perspectives and stuff like that. They get really genuinely confused because I see things that most people don't. I'm able to
Right.
understand like an emotion that most people can't put their hands on or grasp exactly what the hell's going on. There's such a disconnect in some of those situations that it's kind of just weird. It's weird that some people just don't grasp it.
Yeah, yeah. It's basically the way people take in life, and I take in life in a completely different way than you take in life. And it's evident in the way we process our emotions.
And you even saw it when we had the conversation about starting this podcast as a whole. I was like, either it's going to do nothing and it's going to heal us, or
Mhm.
it's going to heal us and it's going to do things that we did not expect it to do. Because as a whole, those are the only two genuine answers. It's not going to be a middling podcast where it does, oh, 100 views here, 100 views here. Like it can do that, sure, but it's going to do one of two. It's going to impact a lot of people, or it's going to impact us and heal us as humans. Either way is positive. I don't know which one's going to happen, but we'll
Yeah,
see.
I think we've already impacted more than just ourselves, and I think on the scale that we are on, that's commendable in itself, and I'm thankful for it. It's helped
Yeah.
me particularly. So
And the interesting part about my overthinking is like my ex-wife overthought everything, but didn't like come to grips or understand the logic of the puzzle that was in front of her. Like
yeah,
she was able to overthink and fear everything that possibly could happen, but didn't understand why something was going to happen, what was going to happen. She couldn't put the pieces together. I with my and I don't know if it's logic, I don't know if it's ADHD, I don't know exactly what it is. I can tell you exactly what's going to happen next. Like you're in a group chat with me and my mom and my aunt. And how many times have I called out, well, this is going to happen. I knew that this was going to happen. This is where it's going to go next. And I've called every single shot through and through of so many different circumstances where it's just like, Zach, you should not be able to do this.
we have all have in our in different situations. Absolutely, we have each one of us in that chat have a different perspective
Hmm.
on life and on the situation itself. And I think that that brings uniquely to that family chat brings value, so much
Yeah.
value, because we all can call one thing or another.
Yeah, exactly. And all of us will see things in a different way. And it makes my overthinkingness work in a way that people I don't think fully grasp.
Right.
Like like the family dinners that we did, right? It was figuring out, number one, how it was paid for, who's going to take care of what are we doing, where are we going, or even going and doing a family vacation or something like that and setting that up. All of those things I've pre-thought out. I figured those things out, and it's just like, is everybody okay with this or that? And I'm able to play the game of like mismatching what I planned in my head
Mm.
and just piecing it together because I already have it all done. And it's so weird. It's so weird because that level of being an overthinker, I'm able to put those pieces together that people genuinely don't understand.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard for me. It's very hard for me to do systematically. Like I have to have a map put out in front of me in order to do something like that. I have to sit down with a piece of paper, make a list, and check
Mhm.
it twice, and then do the whole planning. Yeah, it's nuts. I can't just. It's not something that my mind maps out like that.
Like, I'll reveal a little bit. I can't go super in depth for obvious reasons, but my ex and her boyfriend, husband, whatever, showed up the other day to pick up the kids. And it was the first time that I ever saw him in person
Mm.
because obviously, there's pending possible problems regardless of what the hell's going on. And there's lots of context to the situation. But I looked at Bree and I was like, well, there's two answers why he was here. There's not 50 million, there's two. One, he wanted to prove that he's here. He wanted to prove that he's not just going to shy away and hide and whatever. Or two, he was begged and pleaded to come so that way I have an emotional reaction. Because if I have an emotional reaction, it portrays them in a positive light. I was like, those are the only two possible answers. There's nothing in between. There's nothing else. It was either I'm not a cuck and I'm here, or let's make Zach emotionally react and try and smash somebody's head in. And neither one happened.
Well, because that's new, right? That's not
Mhm.
something that happens.
No.
It's it's there's a third party that comes
Yeah,
and
exactly.
transports that your baby. So it's definitely it's not a far fetched. Might we stop talking about that? But it's not far fetched at all. So yeah, absolutely.
No, it's easier to show behind the curtain of like this is how my mind works. I'm
Oh
able to
yeah.
break things down and see exactly why somebody's doing something. And it seems like a lot of people like and I'm realizing it more and more as I do podcasts, as I'm sitting here kind of just telling dick jokes online. You realize who genuinely has the train of thought to understand what's going on or who doesn't. And it's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah. In most situations, that is the case. I mean, insert X here variable. That's that's the case in most situations. Either you see it or you don't see it.
So I have this big thing, and I think you probably saw it when I was a kid too. Is I'm very quick to point inward towards a problem, and you said you do too. Um, how do you see that as a negative or a positive? What did you want to say towards that? Because I probably have some big long diatribe.
Well, I mean, I guess there's positives and negatives towards it. I mean, I could go into the let's go to the positives first, just because I like to stay on a positive note, but validating my goddamn self rather than looking for outside sources of validation.
Hmm.
That's a really positive way of looking inward. Um, making myself accountable. I am the result of my own choices. Looking inward first, taking care of me first
Hmm.
in situations so that I can give the world or a situation what I can give it to the best of my ability because I can't do it with half a battery or a non-charged battery, if
Exactly.
you will. So taking care of yourself first is that. So those things, as far as looking inward, the positive things that I've taken and just making those adjustments, they've changed me in so many ways. Um, but looking in different situations, whatever comes at me in the world, I like to take the situation, even if I don't think I'm in the wrong, and I like to take the situation and I look inward first now instead of pointing fingers outwards towards whoever. Sorry about that.
Okay,
So
you good.
it's it's a situation of I'm not going to play the blame game right away. I'm going to
Mhm.
turn the situation inwards, and I'm going to take it, and I'm going to point at myself and say, what could I have done differently in the situation?
And that right there, I was explaining to Bree earlier. I don't remember if it was earlier today or last night. We were having a nice in-depth conversation, and I'm obviously really good at this. I talk in depth about everything. It's just my thing.
Mhm.
And I told her, I was like, there's a difference in between holding yourself accountable and saying, okay, this is why I feel like I did this or this happened or whatever, and the world's against me. It's my fault, blah 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 blah. I'm a piece of shit. I'm an asshole, whatever. There's a difference here. When you look at something and you hold yourself accountable in that situation and not turning to blame of like fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. And you're looking inward and you're like, okay, how did I cause this? How did I feel towards this situation? What did this cause? Where are my emotions here? And then not turning into, I'm a piece of shit. Oh, everybody wants to walk away. Oh, everybody is this or that. That's where the mental illness comes in.
Yeah.
Is like as a whole, it's like if you can hold yourself accountable and say, okay, I am the first reason a problem happens to Zach. I just am because either I'm in a place I shouldn't be, I'm doing something I shouldn't be, I'm dealing with something that I shouldn't. Regardless of what level that is, those things you have to kind of look inward and be like, okay, this is why
Right.
I did this. This caused that.
Mhm. You know, I I learned self-deprecation early. I learned how to beat myself
Mhm,
up early, and I beat myself up. I'm harder on myself than anybody could
mhm.
be, uh, always. But I've learned to turn that into not not a punching bag, but more of
Yeah.
a how can I better the situation? How can I do things differently next time? Kind of
I
thing.
almost use that as like a roadmap to like smooth out the edges I have. And that might sound stupid, but like dealing with hundreds of thousands of people, whether they're like poking at you saying, "Oh, well, you look like you're underweight and you do meth and whatever." No, never done any drugs, but good job. Like no matter what level this is, whether it's the problems that I have going on, whether it's my job, what no matter what it is, I promise you that anything you said negatively about me, if I felt it, I've said it 2 inches from the mirror saying that I need to get over it, get past it, and get through it and hold myself accountable to do that.
Right, right.
Like KJ, think about me 15 years ago. How underweight was I? It was one of the biggest things that most people would pick at me for. Why? Because I'm 6'5" and 150 fucking pounds. That looks weird. It just does. And I turn that into, okay, so if I can make fun of myself and hold myself accountable in that light, I'm going to say whatever I fucking feel like. Because if I make fun of myself and do that in front of everybody, I'm going to hold everybody to that same level.
You get through it how you got to get through it. You know what I mean? You develop those defense mechanisms early. You know, I'm
Yeah.
not really sure, and I can't. It was early, very early, where I pinpointed that, and I started doing that early, and I don't really know where it started or why.
It's
Um,
hard once you get that first laugh. Like
mhm,
you make the joke of like, oh, this or that. And they're like, yeah. And everybody giggles. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, so if I shit on myself and don't shit on them, everybody laughs.
mhm.
Okay. Escalate it.
Yep, that's part of the whole, screwing yourself situation you get yourself into because then, you're becoming more of people pleaser than anything else.
And you devalue yourself. You
Yeah.
devalue yourself so fucking much because you're constantly kicking yourself.
Mhm.
You're constantly pushing yourself down and down and down. When in the grand scheme of things, you don't have to.
No, you don't, but have you have to kind of get sick of your own shit before you can change any of that. You have to get tired uh, of that self-blame game,
Mhm.
because you're the only one that can turn that around for yourself. You're the only one that can draw that boundary. And before you can draw boundaries with other people in your life, you have to draw them with yourself.
Yeah, and it's hard not to blame, "Well, you did this and this hurt me." And that is such a big thing I had to learn is it doesn't matter who the fuck did it. What did I do that caused them to react? And if the answer is not nothing, then there's something you can always learn from every situation that is not they are a piece of shit. Because there is situations where people are just pieces of shit.
Oh
There
yeah.
just is.
Oh, always. I
But
always
it's
look
not
back.
that answer.
No, 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 it doesn't have to be. And I always look back at a situation, and it's it's interesting because you when you're looking inward at yourself, and you're trying to think of how you could have communicated differently, even if they hurt you, even if there was a situation, an outside stimuli, the corruption came from outside the house, and you trusted that
Mhm,
person, and you just were the reactor. You're still responsible for your actions and reactions. And
mhm,
so, what could you have done differently? How could have you have used your words and your tools to communicate that situation better to save that relationship? That's where I'm looking inward, because there are a couple relationships in my life that did not get repaired, because of ways that I
same.
reacted to things that I felt slighted by, or more than slighted by.
Yeah, and you showed me at a very, very young age to always be loud about everything. Everybody else told me to be quiet. KJ was always the one that's like, just be loud. Just openly speak about everything because if you do, then at least you're wearing everything on your sleeve and you know, your interpretation of what the situation might be wrong. You might be saying something wrong, but at least everybody knows where you stand.
You're being genuine. And I think that's what I lost somewhere along the way, is that air of genuineness about me, because I was molded by something else that the world had pressed upon me, and I allowed it to be intrusive upon who I was.
And it gets so hard. It gets so hard to just be raw. I
Right.
remember like almost it was the second nature to just be quiet. It was second nature just to shut down and kind of hide my feelings, and even in a lot of this situation, I've frozen so many times,
Mm.
and that's the biggest thing that I struggle with is, like, m my PTSD is I freeze. It's not because I don't wanna keep going forward, is I don't wanna hurt people.
Yeah.
I don't wanna just it's almost like the inaction makes it so way nobody else gets hurt, the only person that gets hurt is me.
Yeah. I'm the same way. And I don't know. Um, I don't know if I impressed that upon you somehow in earlier in life, or I have no idea, but I'm actually very, very similar to that. And it was I remember it very early on in life, because my parents divorced early, 4 or 5 years old,
Mhm,
and I was always trying to make them both happy, and so it was a constant um, a constant game of not doing or saying the wrong thing to make somebody unhappy. So yeah,
yeah.
that was the lot of the hush up and be quiet kind of situation. But my parents were boomers, so that was a whole nother generation
And
and
it's the
way
same
of
answer.
dealing with children. Mm.
And, you know, it got turned into a joke as a teenager. It was, "Oh, Zach's in his dungeon. Zach's not able to come out of the dungeon," and it's like, when I look back at that, and I even look at Madison now, when she's, off doing her own thing or whatever, my first answer is, "Are you okay, kid?" Every single time, like, "You good?" Like, is it just you're shutting down, or is it you're trying to just relax and calm down? Because they look exactly the same, but at the same time, there's such a big difference there.
Yeah, being a teenager is very, very hard. It's very, 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 very angsty time in life.
Mhm.
Fragile, fragile as fuck.
And the only way that I found to be able to get past that freeze, to get past the shutdown, sit down and shut up and shut down is just breaking it down. If I could take the next step, that's the only step that I have to worry about right this second.
Even if it's
That's
a
it.
small step, even
Yep.
if it's the tiniest step, at least you're doing something
It's
towards the end
making the phone
result.
call. It's sending the email. It's hoping that just somebody can fucking hear it. That's all you need is just somebody to accept that step forward. And that gets weird. It gets really weird. And, I'm dealing with 2 things at the same time that are the same exact thing of me freezing and pulling away because
Mm,
I'm like, I don't want to hurt people. And I'm repairing one of the relationships now. It's like if I freeze and I pull away, it's not because I don't want you in my life. It's because I don't want to change your life based off of my triggers. But I know my trigger will affect every single person in the situation. And it's so hard. It's so hard because it's like, do you say the thing that changes everybody's life because you know it will? Or do you shut up and just keep accepting what's given? It's weird.
yeah, that's definitely a heavy one.
The big answer that is taking that next step is learning your fucking instinct. Now, it may not always be right, but sometimes it feels like everything's against you and you aren't listening to yourself.
Mhm.
It has been such a weird thing. And I don't know exactly how this all works because I'm not a religious person. But the second that I started questioning religion, the second that I started questioning to understand the way life works or the way religion works, everything started clicking. Everything did.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It makes me confused because it's like, okay, my instinct is to protect everybody. And it's like, no, you don't have to protect everybody. Your answer is not to instinctually protect everything. Your answer is to instinctually do this or do that. And that changed so much.
Yeah, you have to absolutely along the way, your instincts get mine. I guess I can only speak for myself, but along the way, my instincts got muffled. And
Mm.
I attest a lot of that to the medication that I was on. I was on depression medication and anxiety medication. And I feel like at the beginning it helped me. But for the majority of the end, uh, time I was on it, a good 15 years, and I was on it. It was masking my genuine self and not allowing me to feel and deal with the feelings that I had. So it's interesting that you talk about authentic because it wasn't allowing me to be my authentic self.
And that's such a huge thing. And like even in our circles and people we know, they are very quick to like blame their medication. It'll be the first answer. Oh, well, I didn't take my meds today. I'm sorry, I'm an asshole. Or I didn't have a cigarette today, or I didn't have this, or I didn't have that. And it's like those things that you have in your life that are scapegoats to you, they are the things that need to go away.
It's
Nothing, nothing about life should ever be this thing caused me to be an asshole.
no, it's recognizing those things that weigh you down in one way or another and doing things actively, consciously doing things to make the changes, to do something different about it. If you continue to do the same thing over and over again, you're going to get the same results. You have to make a different choice if you want something different.
And it's so weird. It's so weird because, that was my childhood. I saw that a lot. It was, oh, well, I don't have this, so I'm an asshole today. And it's just like, no, that's not what it has to be.
No.
Regardless of if you have the thing or not, you can hold yourself accountable. You can be instinctual about what life is and just not look at it through a filter. And that's almost what it seems like to me. Is like when they tried me on depression medication, it's almost like you remember watching Schindler's List?
Mhm.
or like World War II movies where it just has that gray filter over everything. Like they filmed it in color, but it's just like they
Yeah,
withdrew all the saturation of it. That's what life is. That's what having an addiction, that's what having, a connection to a medication to where like you can use it as a scapegoat. That's what life becomes then. That's what
yeah,
my life was when I was on, I believe it was Zoloft. I was on it for a month, and my old psychiatrist told me that I was bipolar because I took myself off of it. And I looked at her and said, "No, I don't wanna feel like this anymore.
yeah.
You made it so way my life doesn't fucking matter, and guess what? My life fucking matters.
Mhm.
I don't need to feel like my life doesn't fucking matter. It may not matter to you, but it matters to me. I've had 26 years of life that I didn't care about. Today is not going to be another day of that."
Yeah. No, I agree. I got to a point of anger when I couldn't get my refill of anxiety meds on time. It
Yeah.
got to, and that's where the scapegoat part comes in. But you gotta, it happens one too many times, and you gotta turn to yourself and say, self,
Am I living
it,
life or is Xanax? Am I
yeah,
living life or is Ativan? And it's
exactly,
just like,
exactly. Yeah. So I personally made the choice to wean myself off the medication, knowing that I could very well deal with life at that point because I had been put on it when I was 20 something, 25, 23, 4 years old. And so it was all the way, it was just what, 2 years ago that I did that. I don't recommend it. Don't do it without a doctor's, you know, I wouldn't
and
recommend doing it that
honestly,
way yourself, but
when when you go to a doctor, don't Google the diagnoses. Don't Google your symptoms. Google what you're experiencing. Like, I am dealing with this and try and find an answer and don't feel negative about what the answer is. And that's such a huge fucking thing that I've told so many fucking people is like they want to worry about what the fuck the letters are on a paper.
no.
There's so much overlap in between ADHD and depression and borderline personality disorder and bipolar disorder too and everything else.
They're just
It
names.
doesn't it doesn't matter what the name is. You are a human. And if you sit here and you take on this moniker or that moniker and you create this into being some big negative part of your life, you will never heal from it.
No.
And most of them you can heal from.
That's it's part of the acceptance portion of just about any cycle that has, like the grief cycle. So if you're talking about grief of your your mental health, that's a thing. So that's a whole cycle that you need to go through to be able to grasp that. But you can't again stay in the one of the stages for too long, or you will get in some very deep, complicated situations where that's concerned, and it'll stop a lot. And you'll have to do a lot of backtracking and a lot of repairing to dig yourself out of it.
And it's almost disgusting what these diagnoses do for people.
Sometimes that's the truth.
It becomes an excuse. It becomes something that's like a boogeyman almost. It's like, "Oh, if I don't have my meds or if something bad happens, it always has to be this." I don't have impulse control. I have ADHD. You wanna know who the person is that holds me accountable? Not a single fucking person other than myself.
You have to be. You have to be. Accountability is the biggest portion of any kind of uh, any kind of self
And
reflection.
it's weird, you saw my very, very, very early stages of my marriage,
Mm.
and you were around. I struggled with my morality. I struggled with everything because I wasn't really sure of what being a human was. And in the past few years, that that right there is the thing that changed everything. Was just finding what morality is. It's not wondering what this person or that person would accept. It's what do I fucking accept? What am I okay looking at myself in the mirror for tomorrow?
Hmm. And then being able to stand in that,
Yeah,
notwithstanding what everybody else out here is thinking or saying about it.
exactly. Like it was such a disconnect. It was such a fuck up in my mind. And I remember a few years ago when I looked at my wife at the time and I'm like, I'm about to go into neck surgery. It was right before I scheduled my surgery. And I was like, if they offer me the surgery, which I had a 20% chance of dying it during, I was like, I don't care. She was pregnant with my baby at the time. And I looked at her and said, I can't keep going on with the way life is. I can't wonder if I'm gonna pass out holding the baby. I gotta put my life together in enough of a way that I can move on through tomorrow. So whether this is a 20% risk or a coin flip, that is irrelevant to me. I was like, the check only gets bigger as I die. So as a whole, I have to make sure that you guys are safe. I have to make sure that you and the kids are okay. And that fucking that situation changed my entire outlook on life because now it's no longer living to when something's going to happen. I'm living on borrowed time already. I was okay dying. And that is such a weird kind of life altering situation and thought process to have.
About, about.
It changed the morality of, okay, my life is for me. No, my life is not for fucking me at all. It is for service of those 3 kids and bettering the world in every single way I possibly can.
Mhm.
And, 15-year-old Zach, the one you knew so well because you were with me all the time, was I somebody who bounced off the walls? Absolutely. Did I try and make every single person's day brighter when I saw them? Abso-fucking-lutely. It's weird that that goes away in shitty relationships. It's weird that that goes away when you're trying to find yourself. It's not about self, guys. You can better yourself, but you're not bettering yourself for you. You're bettering yourself for your kids. You're bettering yourself for your dog. You're bettering yourself for your significant other. You're bettering yourself for the people that are around you every single day because if you keep accepting what you are today, tomorrow you're not any better.
Yeah, I think that a lot of it has to do with being able to do it for yourself, though, because if you
Yeah.
don't start with self, you have nothing to give those kids, grandkids in my case, you know what I mean? You have nothing. You have
Especially
not
when we were taught the most selfish saying that there is. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh,
Yeah,
your significant other needs to take care of you so that way you could take care of them. The fuck you do. You're not taking care of me. That's not what you're doing. You're taking care of you. So that way on my bad days, you're there and you can catch me if I need you to. And
mhm,
I'm going to take care of me and I'm going to push myself to be the absolute brink, the absolute craziest level of Zach I possibly can. So that way on your bad days, guess what? You have the best version of me by your side. So that way you know you're not going to fucking fall. And I'll put you back up on that pedestal I put you on.
yeah, that's right.
But we
You
were
got
taught so many times, oh, you know, you take care of me so that way I can take care of you. No,
it,
no, you
it's
don't.
a lot of it goes back to taking care of yourself as selfish. It's not.
Mhm.
It's not.
No,
It's selfish is a completely different thing than loving and taking care of yourself. It's
selfish is
completely
putting
different,
yourself above every other person in the room.
regardless
That's
of
what selfish
situation
is.
or context. Yes.
That that is what selfishness is. Selfishness is narcissism and only worrying about your outcome in the entire situation and not giving a fuck about what anybody else's perception is or anything else, or only caring about how people perceive you. Narcissism is the most painful thing that I've ever dealt with in my entire fucking life ever.
Yeah. And it's hard to see when you're in that web.
Yeah.
It's very hard to see when you're in that web.
It's just, it's so sad. It's sad because the only way to fix it is more reflection and looking back at yourself and saying, okay, I forgive myself for not seeing this. It's okay.
You have to forgive yourself. As a genuine person, um, earlier in life, I didn't realize how just corrupt people were and out for themselves in situations. Most people were. Instead of continuing to persist to be myself and set boundaries, I ran and tried to mirror what was around me, and that was the wrong choice. But it's very important. We're not taught. This is another thing we're not taught. We're not taught how to deal with these things in life, how to move forward. And our parents didn't know. I know mine
No.
didn't know that you didn't learn how to deal with your feelings.
And you see that even in a more exaggerated way with politics now. Is like one is feeding off of completely, oh, you're a bad person if you don't believe my opinion. And the other side is like, okay, we're being beat over the head because we don't care about people's feelings. And it's like, guys, no, you guys are all in it for yourself. And both sides are. Like, they're saying that we care about this thing because it gets you to click yes on this side of the box. And the other side is saying, we care about this thing because they want you to click on that side of the box. And it's like, guys, why are you so fucking selfish and self-indulgent to think that anybody cares at all about which fucking box you click?
Two wings of the same bird. There's mounds and mounds of corruption if we're talking politics.
Even if your best friend cares and you're voting for them for whatever, even if it's the greatest podcast in the world, and I'm like, okay, guys, we're going to vote for us for the greatest podcast in the world. Guess what? That is selfish because I want to beat every single person in that fucking category. But guess what? I still want it. I want it. I want to be able to say, oh, I have the greatest this, I have the best that. Selfishness isn't always uniquely negative because that arrogance and confidence is okay. And that's the
To a point.
biggest last thing that I had to understand is KJ, you can back me up on this one. There were numerous times that I was told, okay, your arrogant ass is going to get you in fucking trouble. Your arrogance, your ego, everything is something that isn't acceptable. There were so many times as a whole that was the entire argument against me was my ego was going to be the thing that dictated what I was able to do with my life. But guess what? When I finally figured out how to use my ego and my confidence,
Right. Honing
where
it
am
down.
I now?
Honing it down is the key. And that's the thing with my mouth. My mouth was off the charts. It was in places where it didn't need to be. It's not all about, you can refine what you say so that you're not firing from the hip, but you can still give a slap and a kiss and let them know what you mean and that you mean business. But I didn't refine that until much later in life, until I realized how it hit people. And I didn't get to realize that until later in life.
It seems like people that are self-conscious when they become parents want their kids to be self-conscious and not in like a malicious way, but because they're self-conscious, they're very quick to point something out. They're very quick to poke something
That's what
that
they know.
hurts
That's what they know. It
because
takes a
that's
lot
what
of
they know.
unlearning to
Yeah.
not be self conscious. Yeah, absolutely.
And my ego was either 100 or it was 0. And when I was confident in something, whether it's a point that I knew or something like
Right.
that, it was, oh, well, you're being arrogant. And it's just like, no, if you're right, you're allowed to point out the thing and say, I'm right. It's okay.
But it's all in the way you say it sometimes.
Exactly.
Sometimes it doesn't hit people. It's all in the way. If you want to be received, sometimes you got to look at who you're speaking with and tailor what you're saying to be received by that person. It's just the way life is. If you want them to
And
hear what
it's
you're saying,
and it's so weird to go from being self-conscious to where you are stepping on your toes, trying to figure out exactly what to say to everybody, to not caring if somebody receives something correctly because you understand what you meant. And that is such a big fucking step in the right direction that I think a lot of people can make is yeah, you have to say it for the correct audience. You have to say what you need to say and say it in a place where it can be received. But as long as you're saying something in the correct ideology and you're saying something with the correct intent behind it, even if it's not received, it's okay if they're taking it wrong.
Coming
You
from
could
Yeah, if you're coming from a place of being genuine, you know,
yeah,
he then it's definitely a point that you can, further discuss if you're misunderstood. But I'm talking
exactly.
about, just shooting from the hip. You know how I used to be. I just
Mhm,
used to run my mouth and not
mhm.
care who I mowed down with it. And it didn't make sense half the time, but I just ran it anyway.
No, and it hurt the people that were closest to you a lot of the time, and I felt it firsthand.
Mhm.
And until you realize that something's fixable, it's really kind of hard to fix it.
Well, you don't
Whether
know how. I didn't know how.
yeah,
Even if I knew something was needed fixing, I didn't know how to take control of that and fix it. You got to be willing to look inward to do that.
and you even see that in the relationships that we form as humans, whether you're in a straight relationship or a gay one, like you're shown or told how to handle the other sex. Like, think about it logically. You're told how to, as a man, you're told how to treat a woman. You open the door, you make sure that they're able to get into the car, you make sure that they don't have anything to worry about, and you protect them. But you don't know how to hear a woman. You don't know how to love them. You don't know how to do anything other than show them what they're supposed to be shown. And on the opposite end, you're shown what to expect from a man. You're not shown what to give. You're not shown how to heal or fix something or accept that you're wrong in this or that. It's always one side or the other. That's why this show is here. Is I want to better the fucking world because a lot of these things, man, are not shown to people and how to fix something.
They aren't, and people they aren't brave enough to put themselves out and be genuine and vulnerable. I wasn't until we started this whole thing. And now I'm back to like, that's part of the whole that I wanted to do was go back to being the genuine person that I started out as before
Mhm.
the world hardened all of this. I don't want to be a hard individual.
And honestly, and I'll wrap it up here. I think that the three of you, my mom, my aunt, and you, see the most raw version of me. You'll see me get excited about something that somebody's pointing out. You'll see something hurt me and be like, "Ah, fuck, nobody's gonna see this," and it freezes me, or something catches my PTSD, and you guys are like, "Zach, you need to put your head down and keep fucking going." It is so fucking hard to just realize that no matter if it's growth yesterday, growth 3 years ago, growth a decade ago, or just taking the fucking shell off and letting somebody hurt you because it doesn't fucking matter if they do.
Let
It's
them.
genuinely hard to realize that it's okay. It's okay to be hurt. But guess what? The only person that cares if I get hurt is me. That's it.
You don't
I
have
can
to.
control if I get hurt. I control if it's going to be okay. And guess what? I control my reaction to every single thing you're doing.
That part. You control your actions and reactions. It's the only thing you can control in life. So why not start with the master of self? And I'm far from the master of my own self, but damn it, I'm trying. And that's a good place to start is find something that you don't like about yourself and do something different and change it. Master that one thing, as small as it may be. Take and master that one thing about yourself and move forward.
4 years ago, I was such a broken human. I couldn't fully put together what I wanted in life. I couldn't put together exactly what I wanted in my future. And I was trying to heal from a neck surgery that I didn't know if I was going to live through. And guess what? I was able to put those pieces together. I was able to figure out why being diagnosed with ADHD isn't a fucking death sentence. It was an answer of why everything seems so different to me than everybody else. It was you know, dealing with a narcissist for so fucking long and being triggered for so many fucking years. And guess what? I was okay to deal with it.
Good.
And I can forgive myself. I can forgive myself for every single thing I dealt with. I can deal with myself for the trauma that I dealt with, the trauma that I caused, the trauma that I caused others. And guess what? I can admit I was a broken person every single one of those days. But you want to know what I did do every single day since 2019? I got better. I got better every single fucking day because the person yesterday should not be able to recognize the person of me today. Because every single day, even if it's a day where I stay the same, I know what I need to do better tomorrow. Subscribe, like, do all the sharing stuff. Find us on audio platforms. Go check out KJ and all of her, political stuff. Go check out all of my stuff. See you next time. Peace.